Living from my Christ nature sets me free. As a spiritual being, I am always free. I remember this at those moments I feel at the mercy of the unpredictable world. While I may not be able to control what happens around me, I can take comfort knowing I don't need to. I am free to choose my responses, but even more, I am free to meet life from my divinity, the birth of my spiritual power. In prayer, I claim divine ideas. I use my gift of imagination to envision the life I wish to live, and the gift of will to make choices to bring it about. I speak affirmations to raise my consciousness and help create conditions for my highest and best outcomes to manifest. I find precious freedom in realizing that life doesn't happen to me. Life happens through me. So if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed. John 8:36. And together, living from my Christ nature sets me free. Thank you.
The presence of the Lord is indeed in this place, friends. Let us experience it together this morning during our time of silence. We prepare for it now by relaxing completely in our chairs, here or at home. We relax, we let go, we release any tension that we're experiencing. We allow the chair or the sofa to support us. We settle in. We scan our bodies from the tops of our heads quickly down to the tips of our toes, relaxing the whole way down, softening brow lines, softening lips, allowing the shoulders to relax gently, go where they want to go. Free our hands of anything, uncross our legs, sit as straight as we can, and simply relax. We take a breath or two together, breathing into our heart space, that area in the middle of our bodies. Some say it is the seat of our soul. Others refer to it as the altar of the Christ within us. Whatever you call it, it's a space inside that we turn to in prayer. We turn to in the silence to connect with our source. God is our source. God is our source. We go there now. And we imagine that connection with the God of our understanding, however that looks to you, is right for you. You define it. We like to think of that connection creating a brilliant, soft light right there in our heart space, the light of God. We imagine it glowing brightly. That light which has tremendous power. That light which is love. That light which is healing. That light which is peace itself. We focus on that. We allow it to permeate our entire body cavity. And then we allow it to shine outside of us. So we turn from the inside out. We go to that space and fan the flames of that light together now in the silence for a few moments. And then, very slowly, very gently, begin to return your attention to your body and to the space around it. Allow all of your senses to reawaken and orient themselves to this room, bringing this peace and this love with you, this power shining brightly through your eyes when you open them, saying, "Thank you, God, for this opportunity to sit in the silence together on this beautiful, beautiful day." And as you come around, let us sing about the bond that unites us, the bond that draws us together, keeps us together, the bond of love. Good morning. Before I advance the slide to my talk title, there are a couple things that I want to say that I hadn't planned on saying. Before the service began, Stacy and Dottie and I were standing in the aisle back here having a conversation about just how miracles happen every day in our lives and how we don't always stop and talk about them or share them, but we did that this morning, and then they just started to pour in. And so I want to share too with you, friends, because as they said, I think it's always nice to hear a good story with a happy ending. Most of you know that I'm working at Silent Unity as a prayer associate part-time. And yesterday I received a call from a lady who calls regularly. We have a lot of regular callers. It's their gone to church experience, I think, some of them every day, and they're a blessing. So this lady called and she said, before I give you my prayer request today, I want to share a good report, which is what we call them at Silent Unity, a good report. When someone calls to share something about an answered prayer, we call it a good report. So she said she lives in a neighborhood in a city where in this particular neighborhood there's a lot of crime. There's a lot of crime, and she worries a lot about her grandchildren being safe. Every time they go out, she sends a little prayer. She calls us frequently if they're going somewhere just to ask us to pray for their safety and their protection. We get a lot of that. And so, having said that, she does that all the time. One of her grandsons is 16 years old, and just a few days before she made this call, he was out with some friends, and they were hanging out in front of a convenience store where they probably shouldn't have been because it has a reputation for being a not such a good spot. And while they were standing there hanging out, the store was robbed. And for some reason, the boys standing in front of the store got the attention of one of the armed robbers, I might add, who walked up to this 16-year-old boy, grabbed him, and stuck his gun in the small of this boy's back. Literally shoved the muzzle of the gun into the small of this boy's back, clicked the trigger, and it misfired. It didn't go off. At which time the armed robber was frustrated and ran because there were already sirens blaring in the distance. My point is, if that's not an answer to prayer, I don't know what is. And so we have a system in Silent Unity where we hear something like that. When we hear something like that, we have the option of typing it up and sending it off. It's called a good report. So as soon as I hung up, I typed up a little summary and I sent it off, and within 30 minutes, 48 people responded with heart emojis or thumbs up or prayer hands or something. So the whole world got to share, well, our world got to share that story. And I got chills when she told me, and I wanted to share it with you. The other miracle moment is a personal one, much more personal one. Yesterday I got off work about 3:15, and I had some of my talk crafted, but not all of it. And so after I took care of my personal needs, I sat down at my desk to finish up my talk. I'm talking about Hinduism today, and I'm mentioning the Om, the sound Om, and I thought, boy, it would really be cool if we all had that experience of chanting Om together. I should call Charlie Osteen. And then I looked at the clock and I said, well, now, first of all, I haven't spoken to Charlie in a long time. This is very last minute. How presumptuous of me. There's that word again, friend, presumptuous. How presumptuous of me to call him at the last minute and say, would you do me this favor? And so I didn't. But I'm standing back here talking to Stacy and Dot, and guess who walked in? Charlie Osteen, who hasn't been here in a while, right? So I said, excuse me, and I went back and asked Charlie to help me out today. So you know, sometimes you don't even have to speak your prayers, do you? Right, most of the time, you don't even have to speak your prayer. Miracle moments happen all the time, so there are two for you. Today's talk is God takes many forms. Amen to that, right? We already know that. But Hinduism is a perfect example, friends, of how true that is. Perfect example. I love this faith tradition so much. If there were a group practicing around here, I suspect I would look them up and join them for some activities. So, a little bit about it. First of all, the word Hinduism is a Western word. It didn't come out of India. It didn't come out of Hinduism. It was created in the 19th century by Americans who needed to call it something. And so the word Hindu was created here by us. It is not. Indians prefer to refer to their spiritual practice as Sanatana Dharma, which means eternal truth or eternal way. So this is just a nugget that I found that I thought might interest you. So Hinduism's been around, and there are people who debate this subject widely, so I'm landing on about 4,000 years. Depending on who you read, it's going to be much longer than that, but I'm landing on about 4,000 years. That's a long time. 80% of the people who live in India are Hindus. 80%. That's pretty significant. I wondered how many of the citizens of this country are Christians, but I didn't look that up because the question just came to my mind now. So if you want to look it up on your phone, you can let us know. Hinduism is the third largest religion in the world, third after Christianity and Islam. There are approximately 1.2 billion Hindus in the world. That's a big number, don't you think? That's a lot of people. And it is, as most of you already know, a religion of many, many gods and goddesses. And again, there's a lot of debate on the how many. It is somewhere between 33 and 330 million. When I first found that fact, I laughed, and then my research, I dug deeper, and then I found that same fact repeated over and over and over again. So I decided to share it with you. The truth is that the reference for that fact, the thing people point to prove their answer around that fact is within their own scriptures. Within their own scriptures. There is reference in some places to 33 and in other places to 330 million. So I don't know. It's a lot. It's a lot. Each one, though, and this is important, it is something I'm not sure I was aware of until I did my research and read my book. Each one of those gods and each one of those goddesses is a facet of the one true God in Hinduism, one true God. And that God is called Brahman. Brahman. There's a great Hindu mystic that many of you probably have heard of, Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna said, God is formless but takes many forms. God is formless but takes many forms. And I'm on board with that, right? God shows up for us in all kinds of ways, right? Hasn't that been your experience? It truly is mine. I believe that with all my heart. So God is formless but takes many forms. So each one of those gods and goddesses is a facet of Brahman. There are three main gods in Hinduism. I'll go back to that. I moved that slide and I didn't mean to. So the one on the left is Brahma. The N is missing from the N. Not to be confused with Brahman, who is the ultimate presence, the supreme one God, Brahman with an N on the end. One of the three main gods, the one on the left, is Brahma with no N on the end. Even on the internet, people have gotten that wrong. I'm sorry to say. No surprise though, right? You can't believe everything you read, right? And somebody doesn't fact check some of this stuff, you know? So, yeah, just dig a little deeper. Pardon me. The one in the middle is called Vishnu. The name many of you have heard, right? I know Charlie and Judy have. Many of you have. And the one on the other end, on my right, I don't know what it is for you, the one sitting who's kind of blue is Vishnu. I'm sorry, Shiva. Shiva. I know, Charlie, I got it wrong. Shiva. Shiva. And you've all heard those names, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. So Brahma is the god of creation, the creator. Vishnu is the sustainer and the preserver. And Shiva is the transformer and the destructor. Things have to break down in order to be rebuilt. Have you noticed that in your life? Yeah. So, and then there's a popular god or two that I thought I should mention. How about this guy on my left? Yeah, Ganesh. Yeah, frequently called the elephant god. Yeah. And then another one who was actually created by Vishnu as an avatar, and that's Krishna. Krishna, another name that you're all familiar with, is actually an avatar, but it's okay to call him a god. And he's on the right. And they're beautiful, aren't they? Beautiful and colorful, absolutely gorgeous. Krishna is featured very strongly in probably the most famous ancient text of India. You know what that is? Anybody? That's right, Charlie. Yeah. The Bhagavad Gita. You heard that? Sure you have. Well, Krishna is featured in that particular ancient text. More on that in a little bit. So now we have all of these gods and goddesses. And then to complicate matters for those of us trying to understand this religion a little bit more, there are many sects, S-E-C-T-S, sects within Hinduism. And each of them focus on a particular god, right? So even within Hinduism, there's a tremendous amount of diversity, which makes it extraordinarily rich and interesting. But there are 4 major sects, the biggest sects: Shiva, Shakti, Vishnu, and Smarta. Right? 4 main sects, groups within Hinduism. And again, in spite of all of that, there is one ultimate God, one ultimate presence, the supreme essence of everything, and that is Brahman. Now I'm going to go back to that slide that I misplaced right here. Brahman, the one true God, several points that I want to make. That is, their one supreme God. Brahman creates, maintains, destroys, and recreates the universe in a never-ending cycle. Well, yeah. That does happen, doesn't it? All the time. It's always going on, always. There's no stopping it. You know, things die, things are born, they deteriorate, they die, things are born, they deteriorate, they die. Ideas are born, they morph, they die, they come to fruition, they're born, etc. It's an ongoing cycle in which we live and breathe and have our being. So in Hinduism, they say, well, that's one of the functions of Brahman. That's what Brahman does. Everything in the world is part of Brahman. Everything. Everything. We believe that in unity as well, by the way, that everything is part of God. It's a radical idea that some people have a hard time even kind of wrapping their heads around. But we do believe that everything is of God. Everything is God. A Hindu's spiritual goal in life is to unite their soul with Brahman. Well, again, I mean, I think that is true for most of us as well. Ultimately, is that not our goal? Is to unite our soul with some extraordinarily beautiful energy that we call God? There's one of the ancient texts of Hinduism says this, and I think this is a beautiful passage. When the wise realize the self, and I think I have this for you to look at so that it actually means more to you. Yes. When the wise realize the self, formless in the midst of forms. Now, self with a capital S. So my essence, my pure essence, all right, my God. When the wise realize that, the self, formless in the midst of forms, changeless in the midst of change, omnipresent and supreme, they go beyond sorrow. Hallelujah. I'm ready to move beyond sorrow, aren't you? It's a talk for another day, but it's silly to be sad. Ultimately, if you can wrap your head around the fact that it's all God, that it's all good. There's another beautiful passage from the Bhagavad Gita, which I want to share because I just think it's so amazing. He who sees the Lord of all is ever the same in all that is, immortal in a field of mortality. He sees the truth. Isn't that beautiful? There is so much beautiful wisdom within Hinduism. And to be honest, every single gem that I found resonated with me deeply. I don't disagree with anything I found. Nothing. Isn't that wonderful, truly? These passages are just two examples from all the ancient Hindu texts that speak to the understanding that humankind is one with the divine, and that there is indeed the ultimate divine in everything. So like our own belief in God, Islam's belief in Muhammad, Judaism's belief in God, and so on, the Hindus believe ultimately in Brahman. And like Christianity and Judaism and Islam, the Hindus use ancient texts to guide them, how to live, how to connect to the divine. You know, how should you be as a human being? What things will help you connect with, what things will stand in your way? And what do you do if you experience a disconnect? All of that is meant to be aided, to be answered, to explain to us by ancient texts. And within Hinduism, there are a lot of ancient texts, some more ancient than others. Well, after all, if you've been around for 4,000 years, that's likely to be the case, right? They have more ancient texts than any other tradition with which I am personally familiar. I will say that. Every Hindu group traces its roots to some ancient text or another, in some cases multiple ancient texts. The Vedas are the most ancient. Veda. VEDA, a word that you've probably seen or heard in your lifetime. Those are the most ancient texts within Hinduism. There are later texts that came called the Brahmanas and the Upanishads. The writing of the Upanishads offer radical insights into the immediate connection between us and God. They are so useful for everyday life. They're so practical. They're so full of information and wisdom about how to live that they are often referred to as the Himalayas of the soul. You know, the highest peaks, the highest, most profound peaks, the most beautiful peaks, the Himalayas of the soul. Hinduism draws a distinction now of all those ancient texts, and there are many. They draw a distinction between the oldest ones and then the more recent ones. The oldest ones, they believe, were downloaded directly by the sages, downloaded directly from Brahman. Downloaded directly. They were channeled. Sages meditated, spent hours in the silence, and then what came to them were these beautiful ideas that they recorded. So direct download. Then there are ancient texts, which it is believed were written down as interpretations, more refined interpretations of that very ancient text, things that were written down by human beings. So two different kinds of texts, both revered, both sacred, both levels, but two different levels nonetheless. We can see in unity, I'll try to drive this point home to you because I think it exists in every tradition that I know about. Within unity, you will hear people say about a particular minister, they're really Fillmorian. That means that they are strict deliverers of the message written down by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. They carry it forward. They preach it today. They talk to people about it. They go directly to the Fillmores. They're called Fillmorians. And then there are a lot of unity ministers and teachers, spiritual leaders, who turn to Neale Donald Walsh and other more contemporary writers. Now, mind you, the message is the same. The message is the same because the truth doesn't change. You know, if it resonates with you, it's your truth. What resonates with me may not resonate with you and vice versa, and we know that's a fact. Truth doesn't change, right? So they're all the truth. So just like in unity, there are different levels of sacred texts, may I call Wayne Dyer and others like him. Their books, sacred texts. I think so. I just did. Why not? You know, a couple hundred years from now, people will probably refer to them that way, don't you think? You know, so ultimately, another couple thousand years from now, people will be saying about us, oh my God, they have a lot of ancient texts. Well, it's true. We do, right? It's kind of fun to play with these ideas, isn't it, friends? I often think it's a shame we stopped writing the Bible. It would be a whole lot of fun to see what it might say now. But that's another talk. So in Hinduism, as I said, the most famous of all their texts is the Bhagavad Gita, just 18 chapters long. You can get it on Amazon as an ebook. Isn't that cool? This particular copy was written by Paramahansa Yogananda. You can buy it anywhere. It is, according to the Unity author of this book on world religions, Reverend Paul, he says, quote, the Bhagavad Gita has influenced people over the centuries, including Western thinkers and scientists like Emerson and J. Robert Oppenheimer. Mahatma Gandhi began each day reading selected passages from the Bhagavad Gita and the Sermon on the Mount. Every day, can you imagine? Passages from those two texts. He believed that these two texts, one Hindu and one Christian, provide everything that one needs to know to achieve union with Spirit. The other text Gandhi used daily was the opening verse of another one of Hindus' ancient texts. Listen to this, and I think you'll understand why it resonated with Gandhi. Maybe even became Gandhi's mantra in some ways. The Lord is enshrined in the hearts of all. The Lord is the supreme reality. Rejoice in him through renunciation. Covet nothing. All belongs to the Lord. Thus, working, you may live 100 years. Thus, alone will you work in real freedom. When I read that, it didn't surprise me that Gandhi loved it and used it. Because didn't he personify renunciation? The way that he went about making his point and liberating his people had a lot to do with what he gave up in order to do that. It's such a beautiful passage. So Hinduism is, spiritually, it's rich, it's layered, it's absolutely, positively beautiful. There are a lot of traditions that come out of Hinduism that are familiar to you, I'm sure. Ayurveda. How many of you are familiar with Ayurveda? There you go. Ayurveda is a mind-body system of nourishing and healing the body, dependent on the spiritual understanding of the individual. I actually go to a pulmonologist who is a Hindu, and the first time I visited him, he checked my fingers, he checked my tongue, checked my hands, and I knew. And without saying anything more, I knew what his tradition was. You know, he has Ayurvedic training, and I honor that, and I considered myself fortunate to have another point of view, a very ancient and rich point of view. Take a look at me. Yoga is another thing that came out of Hinduism, right, Lana? Yoga. We all know about yoga. There are so many varieties of yoga, again, yay, so there's something for everybody, right, Lana? Yeah, something for everybody. And all of them, every single one of them, though they involve exercise, they really have the same purpose, to get you connected to the divine. To get you connected to the divine. Ultimately, that's what yoga is about, union with God. Then not necessarily a practice, but another belief from Hinduism that people know about and toss about all the time without mostly understanding what it really means, and that's karma. You knew that was coming. People talk about karma, and sometimes I'm listening, I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. So not that I'm not putting myself out there as the world's authority, but I have done some research. So here's what I want to tell you about karma. The word itself literally means action, first of all. Action is what it means. It's simply the relationship between your actions and the consequences of those actions. Boiled down, it's cause and effect, right? It's reaping and sowing. You reap what you sow, right? To put it another way, good deeds lead to good outcomes. Bad deeds, well, I don't need to tell you, right? No matter how complex we make that idea, it's really, really very simple. And within Hinduism, the belief is that that goes on over as many lifetimes as it takes until ultimately we unite with the divine. Right? That was very simple, but I think you get the idea. All human beings, according to Hindu scriptures, all human beings, all humans, all animals, all fishes, insects, birds, are actually souls who take birth after birth after birth after birth until they reach a state of perfection. This is called reincarnation. Reincarnation is another belief within Hinduism. You keep coming back and back and back until ultimately you have achieved subliminal union with the divine. That is not unlike what the Fillmores believed when they wrote down all about their beliefs, and we came together and called it unity. It is not unlike what Charles Fillmore believed. It is certainly, absolutely like what I believe. So there it is, friends. The effects of karma don't end with the current lifetime, in other words. It continues on. It continues on. Reincarnation. Hindus believe that the soul is immortal and takes up bodies after body after body, takes up form after form after form. The soul is immortal. Christianity believes that life is eternal, There's no difference between those two ideas, essentially, if you strip them down. They're absolutely the same thing: eternal life and immortal souls. Carnate means of the flesh. Reincarnate means to re-enter the flesh. Reincarnation is the natural way for the soul to evolve from immaturity to spiritual illumination. Every soul is evolving toward its spiritual destiny, and that is oneness with God. The use of mantras and meditations are very common in Hinduism. And I've heard people here talk about their mantras, creating their own mantras. How many of you have used a mantra? Exactly. Well, the idea came from Hinduism ultimately, and to some extent Buddhism, and we'll get into that another week. It's not unlike, by the way, using rosary beads. It's not unlike using rosary beads. You put your finger on a different bead and repeat something, and then you repeat it again, and you repeat it. Ultimately, it's a form of chanting, the repetition of an idea, right? Absolutely, positively. And of course, within Hinduism and maybe all around the world, the most famous chant you'll ever hear is simple, one-word chant. The symbol for it is there. Om. How many of you have ever chanted Om with a large group of people? Well, good, because we're going to do it now. I asked Charlie to lead us because Tai Chi Charlie, come on down here. Tai Chi Charlie. Charlie teaches Tai Chi and he teaches chanting. I used to do chanting with him on a regular basis when I lived here before. He's a dear friend of mine and has a very resonant voice, knows how to chant. So we're going to do a continual chant of Om for 1 minute, because here's why, friend. I want you to have the experience of this vibration that you will feel, that you will become part of. Energetically, it's extraordinarily powerful. So I'll let Charlie go ahead and lead us, tell you a little bit about how to do it. Step up to the mic, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Linda. Great job. So to start chanting, take a deep breath and let it out loud as you can. You don't have to worry about harmony. You don't have to worry about getting the right note. Just, you want to release this negative energy. Let the chanting sweep your soul of all this negativity, and then experience the love. So maybe after we do a minute of chanting, we can just stay still for another minute? Yeah, sure. So let's take a deep breath. Om, and keep doing it. Om. Om.
So I invite you, friends, to reawaken your senses to the external. Wasn't that delightful? Thank you, Charlie. Thank you so much. The most profound experience I ever had, and I think I've told you this before, but some of you may not have heard. I went to a weekend with Deepak Chopra up in the Catskills of New York many years ago over Labor Day weekend. And there were busloads of people that came in from New York City. And so there was a circus tent set up on the grounds because the conference hall was way too small for the hundreds of people that showed up. And so there was a huge, huge tent. And I don't know, there were several hundred people. I don't know how many hundred, but there were several hundred people in this tent. It was packed. And before Deepak ever opened his mouth, before he took the stage, he had a young meditation practitioner and chanter come out on the stage and lead several hundred people in chanting Om, among other things. We did a lot of things, but among them was chanting Om. And I will tell you that, and it was for much more than 1 minute. I don't know how long it was, but much more than 1 minute. We decided to do 1 minute today because Charlie says some people get dizzy after they chant that for a while. And we certainly didn't want that to happen. So, but in this case, at the Omega Institute, we went on for several minutes, and the power in that, under that tent was just incredible. The energy, the vibration was exquisite, exquisite. So that's my experience of Om chanting. So I hope you experienced it a little bit too. So one final note that I think it's important to share with you about Hinduism that struck me is extraordinarily poignant and so important. Maybe because, if you think about it, within the country of India, there are so many different religious traditions. Hinduism shares her land and has for centuries with Jains, with Buddhists, Parsis, Muslims, Sikhs, and Christians, all living in the same land. So maybe that's why. I don't know that's true, although I read several other authorities who seem to think it had something to do with it. Whether that's it or not, Hinduism has this belief shared by every practitioner of the religion that there's only one truth. There's only one truth. It's just simply called different names. Ramakrishna expressed that point beautifully in one of the ancient texts when he says this: God made different religions to suit different aspirations, times, and countries. All doctrines are only so many paths, but a path is by no means God itself. Indeed, one can reach God if one follows any path with wholehearted conviction. One can eat a cake with icing either straight up or sideways. Either way, it's sweet. One can ascend to the top of a house by a ladder or a bamboo staircase or a rope. Either way, you ascend to the top of the house. So diverse are the ways and the means to approach God, and every religion in the world uses one of them. End of quote. I think that's a powerful statement. Powerful statement. Very powerful. So one of the most famous teachers of Hinduism, whoops, what happened to him? Goodness gracious. And it was such a beautiful picture. Yeah, of course. Well, sorry, friends. It was the prettiest picture I've seen. Paramahansa Yogananda, the autobiography of a yogi, introduced millions of people in the world to the practice of meditation and Kriya Yoga. Spent the last 32 years of his life living out in California. Went around the world, highly sought after teacher. Beautiful, beautiful human being, just exquisite human being. His writings are absolutely divine. I don't know what else to say about them except to say they are divine. Autobiography of a Yogi changed my life forevermore when I read it. There are lots of people who have brought Hinduism to the West. I think when the Beatles went to India and studied with the guru, that started the ball rolling. I really didn't, because Paramahansa Yogananda had already started the ball rolling, but maybe among younger people. Let's put it that way. Younger people, all of a sudden. Yoga, when it came over, transcendental meditation, all of it goes back to Hinduism. We have so much to thank Hinduism for, sharing so many rich practices and beautiful ideas and beliefs and beautiful gods and goddesses. What an incredibly wonderful, wonderful tradition. So friends, there it is. It's a thumbnail sketch. There's so much to say, and I always have to choose just how much of it to offer you. So I hope it served you. And remember, the reason I'm doing this is really very simple. Really learning about other traditions with which we've heard about it. We might not really understand, though, how it's organized and what their core beliefs are. That illumines the whole world, beginning with us. Do you know? It establishes greater tolerance and fellowship and understanding and kindness and compassion and curiosity, and all those things are good. So God bless you. Thank you.
Spacious skies, for amber ways of grain, for purple mountains, majesty above thy rooted plain. Vintage where the grapes of wrath were stored. He hath loosed his faithful lightning on his terrible sweet sword. Don't you know his truth is marching on? Glory, glory, hallelujah, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Don't you know his truth is marching on? My country, 'tis of thee this sweet land of liberty. Oh, don't you know? For thee, I wanna sing. Land where our fathers died, land of thy pilgrim cry forever, for every mountainside, let freedom ring. Oh, beautiful, more spacious, help me. More amber ways. Y'all know the song Purple Mountains? For purple mountains, majesty above thy fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.
If everyone will take out their blessings or offerings, and please hold them in your hand, and divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give love because I love to give. Today, we have Linda Woodcox filling in for Marvia. She's away. For any prayer needs, she'll be over here on the side if anybody needs prayer today, would like to be supported. Our spiritual discussion group is the first and third Tuesday of each month. John Hayes is the discussion leader. Yoga with Lana, Monday, chair yoga, 10 to 11, $5 donation. Our prayer circle is Thursday morning from 11 to 11:30, and everyone is welcome. And if the ladies will come up, we'll finish with the announcements in just a moment. Reverend Linda.
So friends, extend your hands with me if you would, as we bless these gifts and every giver here today and those at home who send their gifts in. We are so grateful, so grateful. We are prosperous, we are blessed, and we are humbled by it. And thank you, God, for every prayer request. We take
Thank you. Our caregiver support, facilitated by Bob West, is the fourth Thursday of each month at 2 p.m. Reiki with Sherry Peck. Just call and make an appointment or see her after church. Reverend Catherine Lovekay is going to be here July 10th, and next Sunday. She will be giving us the message. Reverend Julie, I'm going to say this right, Beninsky, is going to be here July 17th, and she'll be giving the message that day, and a workshop. Again, the workshop, it's an experience, a process that reveals to us our own unique, customized denials and affirmations for what we need in our lives. And we say thank you to everyone. Thank you for everyone who participated. And also, thank you for everybody on YouTube. And wow, was that the most wonderful experience ever this morning. The talk, the singing, I'm way on cloud nine. I don't know about you, but I sure am. Now, is there any other announcements? Linda? Sure.
I'm busting at the seams. I don't know about you all, but this is just phenomenal. I just wanted to take a couple minutes and just thank you all for moving me into the next decade so gently, so lovingly, and with humor. And, you know, there's something we probably all don't hear enough, and I just wanted to tell you all, too, how much you mean to me, my church family. You mean so much to me, you have no idea. And I love you all. I love you all so much, and I just wanted to tell you that. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other announcements? No?
There will be choir this Thursday
Okay.
at 6 o'clock.
Thank
right
you.
Here. All are welcome.
Yay. If we could all stand.